everybody, Caleb here. Today I've got this really old guitar. This is an old Washburn guitar. It is really old. And considering the age, it's actually in really good shape. But if you look at it, that bridge is lifting off of there. And it's got a couple of cracks across here. And none of them have been worked on before, which is actually good news for me. Because that means there's nothing in the cracks that I gotta work out. I can just glue them back up, put some cleats in there, and they should be good to go. So, here we go on the oldest guitar that's ever been in my hands. Alright, so I've got the pins out of here. They came out really easy. I'm trying to get these strings off of here. I think I'm just going to end up cutting them. I don't really want to cut them. They're really old, and that's kind of neat, but they're not nearly as old as the guitar. They're just going to get cut. Alright. We can take these out of here now. Maybe. I was hoping putting some back pressure on there would let me get these strings out, but I think I just broke the bridge off. Yeah, that bridge was ready to come off of there. Okay. I imagine the first thing we'll do is glue that bridge back down. We'll have to get it cleaned up first. But that'll probably be where we go first. Well, I said that, but maybe not. Maybe we should take a look at cleating the inside first. Yeah. If I bring you in here, you can kind of see some of these cracks maybe a little better. There's one that runs right here from the hole backwards. Same here and same here. See, that doesn't surprise me. I think we get cracks on those holes really frequently, especially when the bridges come loose. Because then those pins, they just torque on that top and crack it. So I think we're going to try and glue up some cracks first, because I can use a little bit of downward pressure to help push those cracks together, as well as some sideways. And we can still cleat that really well, and I can kind of see through the holes where I'm working if I want to do some cleats. So I think that's what we're going to do first. I'm going to try and get set up for that, and we'll see where we go. Alright, so I think the first thing we're going to do is glue up this one crack right here. It runs from almost the sound hole all the way back to the edge. I'm just running some water along it right now, seeing if it'll open up and work its way into that crack. That way it'll also thin out the glue that I'll put in next. I can see it moving down here. I don't really see this moving much. But we'll see what we can get there. Pulling off a clean towel. I think we're just going to go at it with some glue here. I'll pump the crack to try to work that glue in there. There's so many cracks, this top moves so much. There's not really a lot of structure to it at the moment. I mean, the braces inside are keeping it all together, but it moves really freely. Okay. I'm actually gonna get a wet piece of cloth or towel and wipe that down. There's still glue in there, so we're doing good there. I'm going to put some clamps across it, and then I'm going to use the blocks and wedges to just push down on the top. Alright, I can actually see that moving, that crack. Just my sideways pressure. And that's not even a majority of it. What I'm going to do now is try and wedge this down. Yeah, a little bit of downward pressure is squeezing that glue out as well. That's what I want. That's pushing that together as much as it can be. We're basically going to let this one dry, and then we'll do the next crack, and so on and so on. I'm not going to try to do more than one at a time. I just don't think it's going to work out. I think it's going to go better if I can just do one at a time. So we'll give this a little while to dry, and then we'll be back. Alright, that's set up for a couple of hours, and I think I want to put a cleat on it already. I could glue up the other cracks, but I'm a little worried that just that tiny amount of glue holding together, or the tiny amount of wood holding together, is just going to pop that open when I start putting pressure on a different one. So I want to glue up a cleat first. I've made a couple of cleats. This is the only one that's sized properly yet. I beveled the edges on it. On the one side, I've made a bunch of them. But I'm going to use this one first because I've actually made it to the right size. I'm going to try to glue it in back here. That will prevent this crack from opening back up because the grain is running opposite of the grain in the top. It would be really easy to pull apart. This way, when it's running the same direction as the crack and the same direction as the grain, like this, it would be really easy to break that grain that way. But if you put it this way, it's going to be harder to break that grain. So I think I'm going to glue this in about here. I've got some of these wooden clamps I think I can get in there. This guitar's pretty small, but it would be nice if I could get it all the way in there. Yeah, that's not going all the way in there. I'm not sure I have any longer than this. I could have some aluminum clamps. I'll take a look at that first. The thing is, I really don't want to put too heavy of a clamp in there because I'm going to put more tension on it than I want to be putting on this little top. I can go that deep. That might be deep enough. So what we'll do is I'll tape a little piece of leather on to the inside so we don't dent the, well, actually that's going to be on the inside, so, well, I am going to do that. So I've taped a little piece of leather on there. That's just so we don't dent this wood too much. I am going to actually tape this to this then with a little piece of tape. And building up a little height on the bottom doesn't hurt. That helps me avoid cleats as we go through. So we'll do this. Or I say cleats, I meant it helps me avoid bracing as we reach in there. Then I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom of that cleat. And we're just going to reach in there. As far as we can. Put some leather down so we don't dent the top. And that should clamp that cleat in there pretty good. Alright, we'll let that set up and then we'll come back and see where we are. Alright, I like the way that's looking so far. I want to move on to the next crack. I don't know, I can pick literally any one. I am noticing there is one back here that has been glued. I can feel it, but it has been glued. And I noticed there was a cleat on the inside of it. But there's one right next to it, and then I don't think it's actually solid up in here. So, we'll do something with those. I may do those right now. Actually, I think I'm going to hit this one all the way here on the edge first. I'm going to do just like I did. Get a little bit of water in there to help thin the glue. To get in there a little deeper. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue. And then we'll put a little bit of glue on there. Alright, right across there. Pump it to make sure we get it in there. Clamp across there. Oh yeah, immediately I can see that squeezing that together. I think you can see that down in there. Cool, cool, cool. Squeezing that together. Same thing, I'm going to try to put just a little bit of downward pressure on it. Helps to kind of push those edges together. Yep. Squeeze just a little bit more glue out of there. Alright, we're looking good. We'll let that set up. Another good waiting period. So, for those of you who've been keeping track, if I give these 3 hours to set up, which is not unreasonable for wood glue, and I've glued 2 cracks and a cleat, I've been here a while. So I've kind of decided to change tactics a little bit in my off time. It's kind of weird because for you it's back to back to back, but for me there's been 9 hours of waiting. I think I'm going to use some magnets to glue these cleats in. I don't think I'm going to get a clamp deep enough and be lightweight enough for what I want to do. I'm worried about putting heavy clamps inside of this thing, pulling down on this top, as weak and cracked up as it is. So I think I'm just going to end up using some magnets and doing it that way. Anyways, I've got a cleat ready for this crack over here. I do want to kind of feel inside before I commit to putting that in there. Yeah, right about there. I think it's about there. Perfect. So what I'm going to do, use my tape here, roll up a little piece, stick to the back side of my cleat, stick some magnets to that. And we'll stick a couple of magnets to the top here where we want it. We'll put some glue on there. Alright, let's see if we can get that in there. Pick this guitar up. I did get it. It is locked in there. Getting my hand in and out of that tiny hole in a position that you can see is not going to happen. But it's in there, that cleat. So that should glue up this crack here and make sure that crack doesn't open back up. It should reinforce it really well. Once again, we're back to waiting time because I don't really want to put any more tension on this top than I have to at one time. So I want to get it reinforced piece by piece. So here we are, waiting again. Alright. We're back at this, which means we're another cleat down, which means we got to work on another crack. I think I'm going to do that one. So this one right here, there's one you can hear, which is fairly closed, I believe. Then there's one on this side, which actually has a lip, and I know that's open. I can see it. So I'm going to try to get some glue in there. It stops right about where that bridge was. So that's good. Alright, we're just going to put some glue right on it. Okay. Try this. Okay, we'll put our cross clamp back on there. That's helping. I can see it squeezed out a little bit. We'll put our block back down. It's lower than it was. Which means I might need a bigger block. So I don't think I'm jumping this gap even with two of these. Maybe with two of these. There we go. Alright, so once again, now we wait. Alright, we're back at this again. For a little while. There's one right here that's not totally closed. We're going to do it next. And I think we're going to go for a twofer on this one. I want to put a cleat right here where this is really open. So I'm going to do that after we glue up the crack itself. Okay, glue in the crack. Let's put a cross piece on there. We'll try our usual spot and see what that does. I did squeeze in it, but not nearly as much as I'd like. So we're going to try one across the other place so I can get in the thinnest part here across the waist. Yeah, that's working. Problem is, this wants to lean now. I put so much weight on here, this just wants to run this way. So we'll set it on my shoulder for right now. Yeah, I still want to push that down. I was gonna try to get a cleat in there at the same time. I don't think that's gonna happen. Just puts a little bit of downward pressure on there to help even out the sides. So, well, I was going to stick this cleat right just into that sound hole, and that's not going to work because now I've covered up where I was going to put it. So now we wait. To quote the great philosopher Thomas Earl Petty, the waiting is the hardest part. Alright, several hours later, and let's take this thing apart. I want to put that cleat on there. Next, the one I wanted to put in before we glued this up. Sure does lighten it up when I take those big clamps off of there. So I'm going to put a cleat in right there. It's a real light one, but it's still going to be big enough that it's going to do what it needs to do. Just fit that in right there. I'm going to try to put a clamp on that, just a regular clamp. I'm not actually sure I can fit one of these wooden guys in there. I'll have to find a short one. Okay, I've got a clamp that will fit. This is the one we want. I've got my cleat right here. I'll work some glue. I spread that with my finger. And we're just about ready to stick that on there. Alright. It's going right there. I'm putting this pretty close to the sound hole because the sound hole is going to be the easiest part to break, or start the break, because it's not supported in this middle section. So I want to stick it pretty close to that if I can. I don't think this is going to fit in there. I think this is just too big. Okay. I don't think I have a clamp that's small enough. I guess we'll go back to magnets. Okay, let me stick that in there. Oh, not like that. I'll hold it long enough for me to do this. Okay. Once again, we'll wait till that's done. I ain't getting in no clamps anywhere near those magnets while it sits, because it's just going to pull the magnets off and I'm going to have more of a mess than I want. So, here we go. Alright, so this sat for a little while, and I'm not going to take it off yet, but I do think I can move on, and I think I'm actually ready to glue the bridge back on. I'm pretty sure I'm happy with all of the cracks. I did, while this was setting up, come through and clean up the surface here and the surface of the bridge, and they're both looking really good. I'm really happy with that. I think we're ready to glue it back on. There's not a whole lot on here that's underneath the bridge that, you know, like finisher stuff that's not going to let the glue stick. I think this just either got warm or came off, or the top warped and it came off. Either way, I think we're good to just glue this back on here with some good pressure. I am going to use the tool I have been using for regluing bridges. It seems to be working really well. And I think we're ready to just glue this thing back on. So I'm going to start putting some glue on the bridge. We'll put a little bit of glue on the top as well. This is just to ensure we have total coverage. All right. So I get the paintbrush out and I'll start painting that on. Paintbrush has been sitting in water. Dry that off first. Okay. So I've got glue on the bridge. I'm trying to get it where you can see it. I'm just going to paint that on there. Got a little bit of a bare spot in the middle. Not anymore. I want 100% coverage. Every surface touching. Alright, so that's looking good. We'll set that down. Then we'll do the top as well. No shortage of glue on the top. I'm not worried about making too much of a mess. I'd much rather know that I've got glue everywhere and have stuff to clean up than have a totally clean surface and not quite sure I got glue everywhere I wanted it. So we're ready to put this thing in here, and I've got my tool set here. I'm just going to drop my little bolts through the pinholes. I'm actually going to pick that back up, pick a piece of leather in there. Try to avoid denting any wood. And now the reason why I'm going to go ahead and do this with the magnet still in there is my nuts and washers aren't magnetic, so I can actually get them in there no issue. Shouldn't be moving anything around. So I'm going to attach these wing nuts and washers to these bolts. I'm going to try to. Getting my hand in the hole by itself is work. Doing it while holding something is even more fun. There we go. Got one started. We'll get tight. We'll get tight. It's biting me. All right. It's just barely big enough for me to get my hand in there. But we got that stuck down. Both of those they're snug. They're not crazy tight. I want to take a piece of cloth that's moist and wipe around the edges. Take off any glue squeeze out we've already got or any mess around the edges. And then I'm going to slide in 2 pieces of leather for the wings. And then as we tighten those down, these edge ones, that'll help push the wings down. And we can snug these down just a little bit more as well. We should be looking good. So we'll let that have plenty of time to dry, and we should be looking good. I think we're going to be good to move on to whatever's next after that. We'll have to see what we want to do next. Alright, it's getting to be crunch time on this thing. I'm wanting to get this going pretty quick. I've noticed there's a crack in the back I can see through, see daylight through, and it moves. So I'm going to try to do that one next. While that's drying, I'm going to start on the fretwork. The frets are terrible. I don't know if you can hear that, but my fingers catch on all of them. So we're going to do something about that. Now I got to find that crack again. It's right next to the middle. Okay, right here. So we're going to do this one real quick. I want to put some glue in it. Okay. Block. Yeah, there we go. I almost want another one for right here. I'll figure out what I'm going to do with that. Alright, that ought to do her. For that back one, we might put a cleat on that yet, but we'll let that sit for a while. I'm going to try to flip this over and work on the frets. I'm going to let it sit for a little while, but we'll leave it clamped up while I try to do some fret work. Alright, so those clamps are still on the bottom. I'm kind of holding it up so I can work on this and not have to sit around doing nothing. These frets have sprouted really, really bad, and what's actually happened is the board has shrunk. But I'm just going to kind of knock that off real quick. Better. What you have to be careful is working over the top, because you can easily scratch that top with the file, so I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to stick my fingers underneath the file here when I'm working on the top. I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm kind of holding it up again from the top so I know I can't run into it. That's looking good. Just a little bit more. I think we're just about there. So I should be happy with that. That should be good. I don't know if we're going to need a fret job yet, so I'm not going to do too much more. I don't really like working with this whole big thing. What I do think I'm going to do while we wait for that to dry, once again, so I'm not doing nothing. These tuners are a mess. I don't know if I can show them to you, but you can see they're really dirty. I'm going to try and take them off and maybe clean them up, see what we can do there. But we'll do that. I'll take them off, and then we'll look at maybe cleaning them up a little bit. Alright, so I took this off of here, but I'm thinking I'm not really going to do what I was initially going to do. I was initially just going to kind of clean this up with some steel wool. I think I'm going to go run it through the ultrasonic cleaner with some something, clean it up. So we'll probably end up doing that. I backed these screws out a little bit. Hopefully we can get all the way clean and I don't have to take it entirely apart. Yeah, I think I'm just going to run it through the ultrasonic cleaner, see what that does, and we'll go from there. So we'll try that, and then I'll maybe take the other one off and see what we want to do with that. Alright, so I've been jumping around on this thing for a little while. You can probably tell what I'm getting ready to do next, but I've got the tuners back on here. I cleaned them up. They cleaned up really nice. They look really good for good old tuners. I did some checking as to fret level, and it needs leveling. There's a couple of high frets. They're not terrible. Not one of them is really bad, so it's going to be a really light level here. But they're just a little bit out. So we're going to do a really light level. There was one up here, and then there was just a couple of spots. And that's all I'm going to do. I don't want to do any more than that. I want to grab my crowning file now. Hit those real quick. And we need to sand these to start polishing back up. Alright, we'll start with the sanding here. I'm going to start with a piece of 600 and just start sanding these frets. It's going to really start cleaning them up more than anything, but it also knocks off any of the file marks that we just put on there. The other thing is that because we filed this edge, I'm going to take my 600 and just kind of work that edge as well to help start smoothing those corners over. That's probably pretty good. We didn't do a whole lot. I'm going to take a piece of 1200 now and do exactly the same thing. Alright, so we did that up to 1200. Now what we're going to do is take our micro polishing pads and go from there. I have to go find what I did with them. So these work the exact same way as the sandpaper. They just go up really, really high grit so we can get a nice polish on these. Those are looking good. The next thing we'll do is we'll clean up the board. I'll get out a new razor blade. I'm going to turn this towards me a little bit so I can get a better angle at it. And we'll just scrape that board. I have to work my way across the radius to make sure I'm actually scraping all of it and I'm not taking any of that radius out. Alright, we'll oil that up next, get it looking good. Just using some of the good old Be Good wood oil, same stuff I like to use all the time. I suspect dryness is what caused this crack in the fretboard here. And so we'll put some conditioner on there to help keep it well hydrated for the future. Now you can probably tell there's way more on there than we need. So I can just take a cloth and wipe off the excess. And that leaves us with a nice and shiny, real smooth and clean board and frets. Yeah, that's looking good. I think we're getting close to being done with this thing. I don't think there's too much more I want to do before we start talking about strings. Maybe just making sure we're all dusted off and cleaned up, but not too much. Alright, I'm going to put some strings on this. I think I've gotten everything. We've cleated all those cracks. I may have skipped over recording a couple of things, cleating or gluing a crack, but I'm pretty sure I've gotten them all. There was a lot of jumping around there for a little while, making sure I cleated all of them. But I think we're just about ready to go here. I hate these old headstocks. Well, I really don't like these old headstocks because stringing them up is always a pain. I'm gonna basically just feed it through and start winding it up. The slotted ones are so much less fun. I'll probably skip over stringing most of this because I really don't like doing these slotted headstocks. They just take a while. Because there's no way to speed them up. I just got to do it at the pace that it's going to let me do it. I got to basically wind the entire slack I have. I don't get to wrap it halfway first. So I'll probably stop and come back once I've got some strings on it. Well, we're probably just going to end up calling it here. I know it probably needs a little bit more setup, but I really want this to sit with string tension for a couple of days, maybe close to a week, before I really get going on some setup. And I want this video to come out tomorrow. So something's going to have to give, and it's going to be the video for this. I do have it playing right now. It is a half step down, and it's going out of tune. So I got to retune it constantly, but such is the deal with a short scale and really thin strings. But it plays. But, yep, I'm going to let it sit for a couple of days. I'm going to be done on this video, and it needs some setup, I'll be honest, but I want to make sure this top is rock solid before I go getting really deep in setup. And I think the best way for me to do that is just make sure it's solid by leaving it at string tension for a little while. So, unfortunately, this is going to be a little bit of an anticlimactic end for this. But I'll get her finished up. It ain't too much more than this. Nothing you haven't seen 100 times before. So thanks for watching this really old Washburn repair job. I'll see you later.